Hi, and welcome to the Turn On Engagement podcast focused on the topic of the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Chris Barrera, and we actually have a very special guest today, Dr. Kevin Smith, Vice President, Employee Experience with Unforgettable Coatings Incorporated, also known as UCI. Today, we're going to hear from Kevin and how his organization has been working through the challenges of the Great Resignation and how their commitment to their employees, their culture, and their values has allowed them to remain resilient post-COVID and through the Great Resignation. Kevin's professional experience has been in the fields of organizational development, human resource management, and human resource development. Kevin has been teaching graduate and undergraduate courses since 1995. He currently serves as Vice President Vice President Employee Experience for Unforgettable Coatings, a construction company that specializes in painting and specialized coatings with operations in Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and Idaho. His educational background includes a bachelor's degree in organizational communication from Brigham Young University, a master's degree in human resources and organizational development from the University of San Francisco, and a doctorate in psychology with an emphasis in organizational development from Alliant International University. He and his wife have 5 children, 2 grandchildren, 2 and 4 years old. 2 years old and 4 months old. Kevin has been raised in the state of Arizona, gained much of his work experience and education in California, and is now living in southern Utah, enjoying the diversity and beauty associated with 4 distinct seasons and clear skies. We look forward to hearing from Kevin Smith, Vice President, Employee Experience with Unforgettable Coatings Incorporated, next Turn On Engagement podcast. All right, welcome back to our Turn On Engagement podcast. Our Turn On Engagement podcast episode today focuses on the Great Resignation, also known as the Big Quit and the Great Reshuffle. This pandemic era phenomenon known as the Great Resignation started in the spring of 2021 and has continued into 2022. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, almost 48 million people voluntarily quit their jobs in 2021, with a peak historical record of voluntary quits of 4.5 million in November of 2021. So far this year, January and February, we've seen an average of 4.3 million quits. And while this is slightly down, it appears that these labor statistics will continue well into 2022. There's a lot of debate on what the actual drivers are for these record quit rates. Experts are discussing and debating the causes and even the data that's being reported. Please join our webinar, Understanding the Great Resignation, in our SHRM and HRCI pre-approved CE webinars as we take a deep dive in understanding the Great Resignation. You can register for those CE courses at hubengage.com. What is not debatable is how the current labor market has created a challenge for many employers who are struggling to attract and retain talent. Here to discuss what his organization is doing to combat the Great Resignation is Kevin Smith, Vice President, Employee Experience for Unforgettable Coatings. Welcome, Kevin. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your inviting me to share a little bit about my thoughts on the Great Resignation and also my employer, Unforgettable Coatings.
Now, I do have a few questions for you today, but before we get into that, I understand you have a new member in your family, one of the furry kind. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about him.
Well, thanks, Chris. I mostly love him. His full name is Sancho Donald Ralph Calhoun Smith. We call him Doc for short, which is named after one of my uncles. And his background is he's allegedly a half Bernese mountain dog, which is a breed I'd never heard of, and half Labrador Retriever and half Poodle. And we don't talk about the Poodle much to him, but he looks more like an Appenzeller Sennenhund. And I'll show you a picture sometime.
That would be great. We picked up a puppy a couple of years ago, ironically, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And she's been a great joy to have around. So I'm sure that's going to be a great add to your family, and you guys are going to really enjoy Doc. Kevin, I've had the pleasure of knowing you for well over a decade. I certainly consider you a mentor, a true friend. One of the things that I've always admired most about you is your passion for your employees and the job that you do with them. It is fitting that you're the vice president over employee experience at UCI. I personally have believed that have always been an employee experience leader well before the term was ever created. We've been using, that people experience term for a few years now in HR. But I think at the end of the day, it really is how we treat our employees, but how we treat our employees by example in our actions and what we say and what we do. So Kevin, if you would you tell me a little bit about your role at Unforgettable Coatings and what your mission is?
Yeah, happy to, Chris, and thank you for the kind words. But it's in those 10 years, I always thought you were the mentor. So I'm eager to share what maybe you've taught me. And but at my role at Unforgettable Coatings is it's interesting. We've got 300 employees across 4 different states. And I think it's interesting that a role in a blue collar environment like mine would even be created. And most of our production employees are Spanish speakers. And it's truly a blue collar environment. Physical labor is required and a skill set that, requires somebody to learn all the time because there's always new types of paint, new types of coating. Things I can't even pronounce that are going on various types of structures, whether they're vertical, which would be walls, or horizontal, decks or roofs. And so when I first talked to the leadership of Unforgettable Coatings, they were telling me about the values of the organization and its mission, and they wanted somebody to help those mature and settle in the organization. And so I talked to him when I come to terms, and I said, well, I need a job description, and so they sent me one, and the first item on the list was you are to love our employees.
That's awesome.
In my 40 years of work, while I've loved employees, I've never seen that actually written into a job description. And so
pretty profound for sure.
Yeah. So it's, I had to think about how I would even do that, Chris. And so, to give you an idea, I said, well, what are the values of the organization which underpin its vision and its existence and its mission, and they're really pretty simple. And one of, I thought the leadership was going to ask me to add to it because I just done a lot of work on this, as you mentioned, in other organizations. But we only have 3 values, and they are compassion, trust, and gratitude. And everything we do is built around those 3 concepts. And so, as I think about those, in every interaction I have with an employee and also outside the organization, when I'm representing the organization, or even in my daily walk with my family members and people in my community, I try to keep those values in mind. And often I'm wearing a Unforgettable Coatings T-shirt because they're comfortable, and so I'm kind of got that message on in case somebody ever asks me. And I stop and think before I honk at somebody if that makes sense to you. So where Kevin would probably honk at somebody if I didn't have the shirt on. So I'm consciously aware of my needing to exemplify the values and actually live the values, and constantly be reminded of what gratitude and compassion and trust mean. And so that's my first objective. And then I think about, what are we trying to accomplish as an organization? And I'm reminded what our founder and our current president and CEO said to me. He goes, the reason for our existence is, painting is what we do. it's a vehicle, it's a product or a service we provide. He goes, but creating or providing unforgettable experience is who we are. And that requires some thought for me to understand what he's trying to say there. And I think it was captured in modeling and living the values I identified. The mission of the organization is just to build things positively with those with whom we come in contact, and what's an unforgettable experience. Hopefully, it's a positive one. And if somebody can say he was treated, or she can say she was treated with dignity, respect, patience, kindness, I think we'd find compassion, gratitude, and trust at the center of those other values or virtues. And so it's not just for customers, but it's especially for employees as I see it.
No, that's really good, Kevin. And I think that, when we're talking to organizations, I know sometimes we tell people that they need to change their culture, or, need to improve their culture. And sometimes that's easier said than done. I think that, a good corporate culture, starts with, the DNA that's in the leadership, the DNA that's in the company, foundation. And then, of course, ultimately in the employees. And all of that, right, is going to be dictated by how we act as an organization, how we treat our customers, how we treat our employees, our actions and what we do around us in our communities, inside and outside of the workplace, as you mentioned earlier. Which kind of takes me to my second question. One of the issues that can lead to employee dissatisfaction is the non-alignment of the employee's beliefs and values that are different than their employer. When I think of values that I would like to align with, I think of honesty, integrity, compassion, diversity, inclusion, being a good corporate, having good corporate citizenship, and then serving the communities that we're in. You mentioned some, really big values in your previous statement of, compassion, trust, and gratitude. Tell me a little bit about what you've done at UCI to kind of help exemplify that or demonstrate, right? And I understand that, you guys have done some really good things within your community. Why don't you tell our listeners some of the things that you're doing?
Well, I can tell you one story that comes to mind, Chris, that had a profound effect on me, both at the time and continuously. And that was, I've been with the company about 2 years, and about this time 2 years ago, we were knee deep. I was starting to get knee deep in the pandemic, and a lot of our operations are in Las Vegas. And if you may recall, the governor shut everything down. The casinos, the restaurants, the hotels, a lot of service industries, and these people they don't have work from home opportunities. And so I was asked to go to Las Vegas to attend a meeting, and there were about 7 or 8 of us seated around a table. And first time I'm meeting people, and I just left a job I really liked for this, and I'm still trying to feel my way through it. And Corey Summerhays, the president, says, "Listen, here's the situation. The government shuts everything down. A lot of places we do business, employers or customers are scared. They're canceling projects, or they're postponing them." One of our managers was driving down Charleston Avenue, which is a central street in Las Vegas, and he noticed a line of cars that started essentially at Highway 15 and went to Summerhill, which is on the west end of town. And he'd never seen anything like that. And so he films it, and then he circles back, and he parks in a shopping center, and he walks over to somebody that's waiting in line, seemingly waiting in line for something, and says, "What's this about?" And the person said, well, every Thursday, there's an organization at Plaza Hotel called Three Square that distributes food to families who have lost their jobs because of COVID. This is like 10 miles of cars. And so he shares that with us. And then he says, we just got paid $100,000 for completing coating the roof of the new Allegiant Stadium, which is where the Raiders play.
Mm-hmm.
And, we get a sense that, our community is suffering. Should we give this money to Three Square and let them buy $30,000 worth or 30,000 meals to help these people that have been good to us for the last 10 years? And, as I'm sitting around, fortunately, I wasn't the first one to speak because it kind of went in order, and there were production managers and office staff and a couple foremen there, and they all shared their opinions. And the other thing he told us was one thing during this pandemic, at least for the next 6 weeks, even if we don't have work, I'm going to make sure all the production workers get paid at least 80 hours, as long as they're willing and able to work if there is work. And I never heard of anything like that. And so he tempers the questions with that. And I just joined the company, and he said, and I asked the workers to forego 30% of their performance bonus that they make in order to not lay anybody off. And I'm thinking, well, that applies to me as well. And I go, how am I going to tell that to my wife? I just changed jobs, but if that's what's required, that's what's required. And so I'm listening to people share their opinions about what we should do with this $100,000 in light of, feeling a pinch of possibly 30% of pay for the next 6 weeks. And as I listen to people respond to the question, it just occurs to me that Corey wouldn't have asked the question if he wasn't prepared to do it. And he wouldn't be prepared to do it unless he was really, really committed to the values and the mission of the organization. And so that's pretty much how I responded. And that's what we did. And it involved not only making that donation to this organization on the same day or the next week. We had about 80 painters work at 3 different service stations we essentially rented for the day. And as people went to pick up boxes of food, however many there were, we gave out vouchers for $15 worth of gas, which was a lot more valuable, 2 years ago than it would be today. But so once they got their food, they could go to one of 3 gas stations, and we would give snacks and waters and Red Bulls and Cokes and wash windshields and pump gas for them. And employees got a chance to serve, and which was beautiful. And so I remember one instance, Corey, where Chris, where somebody comes in driving a Maserati, and and I'm serious, we put in $15 worth of gas and do the windows and give them some snacks. And then I asked the employee, what do you think about that? And I getting gas and driving a Maserati. He goes, he must be hurting somehow. And, what that car makes me think, the driver is used to good service. So I did the very best I could.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Anyway, that day was that. There's a lot more to that day but I could share more. But that kind of gives you a feel for what the culture is about. It's giving back to the community, but it's also taking care of each other. And I learned a lot that day.
It's an incredible story, Kevin, and I think that those are the things that I know employees are looking for when they're reading their mission statement or their value statements, right? About how truly a company is living these. I mean, talk about compassion and gratitude, compassion for the people in the community, gratitude for their years of of work and business that they've given you, and give us some of that back. No, that's definitely an incredible story. Well, Kevin, I just have maybe one final question, and I know we're talking about the Great Resignation, and that really is a big topic. Certainly has to do with the onset of COVID. And here we are now, post COVID, still feeling the effects. I think we're going to feel the effects for quite a long time. Certainly, I think some of those are driving, the labor market. And employees change about how they feel about the work that they do, where they want to do it, how they want to do it, et cetera. Tell me a little bit about the struggles you've had over at Unforgettable Coatings Incorporated to hire and retain talent.
Okay, yeah, we're affected as everyone else is, and maybe even some additional challenges that we have because the work that we offer is physically demanding, and all the work that I mentioned, the decking, the coating of the roofs, and the painting of exterior walls, it's all outside. And sometimes there's, the work itself is physically demanding, but also there's uncomfortable weather conditions. And of course, we don't, if it's really windy or rainy or snowy, we don't paint, but it's not a job everybody wants to do. And so the first thing, Chris, is we read the statistics as everyone else does. And so, as a practical matter, we have these values that just aren't things that we don't ever talk about. Every weekly meeting with the foreman, we talk about a different value. And so one, it really, it's a good time to put your money where your mouth is with these values, and make sure people don't feel as if they're treated as objects. And I think we've all had employers or worked places where employees really weren't valued. And if you don't feel like you're valued right now, it's probably never been a better time to be an employee, right? You go somewhere else, that will
Definitely
pay you
so.
with your skills, and maybe it's a shorter drive, or maybe it'll allow you to work from home. We can't have our painters work from home. And so the first strategy I think is anybody can figure out is just take care of the people that you have, and create an environment that they want to stay, and they feel valued and appreciated, and even loved, that they're not going out to look somewhere else. And so that's one strategy. The second one is, we don't, we want to find what we consider an unforgettable employee. And so our primary source of recruiting is to use friends and families of current employees. But who's better to talk about what it's really like? Recruit. I remember, as an HR practitioner, the saying, "Hey, that's not really lying. That's just recruiting." See the difference? Of course, there's no difference, right? And so the point is that people can bring people to companies for all kinds of reasons, and you say, well, is the grass greener? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but these our employees experience the organization every single day, and many of them have not worked at another place where they were treated with respect and dignity and kindness and all the things I talked about, where they were treated as objects. And so, one, you want to keep them satisfied, or you used the word aligned earlier, and so we want, and for the first thing, we bring people who we think are going to be aligned with the culture and the values. Secondly, we want to keep them, we want to maintain them well, so they're not out looking for greener pastures. And then thirdly, what we've done, we've tried advertising in a couple different places that hasn't been successful, but what has been successful is we provide retention bonuses to new employees that have been referred to us by existing employees, and we also provide the same bonus structure to the referring employee to make them think, kind of like those, back in the day, there were, I get a call from a relative saying, "Hey, how would you like to go?" It's kind of like, that kind of thing. But it's the performance bonuses are paid to both the new employee and to the referring employee, and that helps them again feel valued and connected, and keeping their eyes open for their friends and family who might be looking for work. And we hope, we also use the term DNA. Hopefully that DNA is reflected in their wanting to be an unforgettable employee. That embraces and appreciates the values and what we're trying to accomplish. And then, a lot of these guys don't think about that stuff before they come. They want the check, and they want to know how much it's going to be, and whether they have work the next day. And one thing I might say is after this day that we service the vehicles, we had a short meeting, and the 80 painters out there dressed in whites, and Corey asked him, I want about 5 of you to say what you just experienced. And they all, these guys aren't public speakers, but they all shared expressions of gratitude for having work, and for working for this type of employer. And then which is outstanding, an astounding experience. And then Corey asked him, how many of you know people who are out of work? And there's 80 guys standing there, and friends or family that have lost their jobs because of COVID, and every hand went up. Yeah. And then just a short comment to finish this approach is, he said, well, tomorrow I'd like you to invite a friend or family to this grocery store, and like you to help them get $150 worth of food. And no questions asked, they buy what they want. And you just tell them we appreciate them, and we appreciate you. And here's something that you can do as an employee to bless somebody else's life.
Yeah, incredible.
But that's part of the strategy, Chris, to keep people where they feel like they're connected to the organization, or again, they're aligned with it. And they're not going to have these experiences elsewhere. And so for them and for me and for the families that they invited, it was an unforgettable experience.
Yeah, incredible. Well, Kevin, I really thank you for the time today. I talked about doing a podcast with you, and it's always so enjoyable to hear you talk about what you're passionate about. And really, as an educator as well, and facilitator, sharing that experience with other people, I think is huge. I think it speaks for itself, but it really helps other organizations resonate with what the right things to do. And every organization is unique, everybody's different, but I think there's certainly some lessons that we can take from you and from UCI. I hope we get to do another podcast. I really enjoyed today, and I really thank you for participating on our Turn on Engagement podcast. And we'll talk to you really, really soon.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much, and have a good rest of the week.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey there, employee communications and HR folks. We've got some big news to share over here at Hub Engage. We've officially been made a Society of Human Resource Management recertification provider. So if you're a SHRM member and you're in need of getting your mandatory recertification credits, you can tune into our new webinar series where we educate and train you on a variety of HR-related topics and trends, so you're up to date on your continuing education requirement. SHRM is a great place for all things HR, and with this exciting new partnership Hub Engage has created, we can now recertify you while you turn on engagement at the same time inside of your company. For more details and to sign up for a recertification course with one of our Hub Engage SHRM certified experts, visit hubengage.com and click on the SHRM tab under resources to get started today.